Who are we when life places us under pressure? This is a question I've been thinking about through the lens of losing my job 20 years ago, imposter syndrome, my learning through sport, and developing my coaching philosophy. What I found out was all of these arenas were in fact exploring that very same question and help create an identity that I can relate to today. I had attached my identity to my job. Coming from a working class background, it gave me purpose, a sense of pride. I felt I was on the front foot and in control. Just when you think all is fine, I was told words I didn't see coming. Paul, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. I had no purpose, and my identity became unemployed. The rejections came one after another. I felt like I was constantly being pushed backwards towards the ropes. The spiral continued. The internal voices get louder. You're a loser. How can you not find a job? Now it's hooks and body shots. No matter how much I cover up, the punches are connecting, sending me backwards into the ropes. Fortunately, I had my parents in my corner who sent me out for the next round. That resilience I picked up on the football field also kept me going through a tough 12 months. But looking back, the resilience that got me through those 12 months wasn't something I had suddenly discovered. Sport had been teaching me those lessons for years. The sports field was without doubt my best classroom. Not for the winning, but for the learning. The resilience helped me through that tough 12 months in 2006 and 2007. I prided myself in how I showed up on the field and in training, aiming to be the best version of myself. These were the basic standards I held myself accountable to. I worked to lead by example. There was never a need to give me an armband or a title. Those are rewards for how you show up and the standards you set when nobody is watching. 8 years later, in 2014, I found myself in a very different position, appointed deputy head of secondary school. When challenged by a colleague about my approach, I remember his outrage when I related it to how I would lead a football team. The simple goal of having everybody pointing in the right direction for a shared purpose. I listened to the outside noise, believing that I had to prove that my sporting background was irrelevant and that I belonged in academic leadership. I started to hide the one thing that had prepared me most for leadership. That's where the imposter entered the story. You don't belong here. You're not good enough. You've been found out already. But by the summer of 2016, that confidence had disappeared again. You see, the imposter desires safety and security. It will sometimes ask difficult questions and make statements we don't want to hear because it wants us to stay within the boundaries of our comfort zone. What the imposter doesn't understand is that growth requires discomfort. We only learn this when we are willing to embrace the fear and move forward. Through my trials, tribulations, and reflections, I realize that as the imposter will always be around, and that I understand that rather than destroy us, it is actually trying to protect us. I actually think living with the imposter is similar to a dance. When it steps onto the dance floor, I simply make sure that I am the one leading the dance, as that will take me out of my comfort zone and allow me to grow and develop. I don't try to silence the imposter anymore. When it steps onto the dance floor, I make sure I'm the one leading. Stepping out of your comfort zone is like learning a new dance. Initially, there will be fear, but sometimes the fear is telling you you're about to do something that really matters. When the voices try to amplify, I simply choose not to give the imposter the microphone. And eventually, I realized that the imposter wasn't just affecting how I saw myself as a leader, it was influencing how I showed up as a coach. Initially, I sought validation, a desire to be liked, and thought that winning was everything. This drove how I showed up as a coach, intense, under pressure, my way or the highway kind of attitude. Fortunately, I evolved through the setbacks, experiences, reflections, and mistakes. When a talented young player walked away from my practices because of my approach, I knew at that point I needed to change and evolve. From control to empowerment, giving the players the space to go ahead and grow. The important thing for me as a coach, teacher, and leader is to ensure that my message is consistent with how I live, lead, and coach. The biggest lesson has been recognizing that leadership, coaching, and personal growth are not separate things. They are all expressions of the same identity. Looking back, I can see that my biggest challenge was not the pressure itself. It was allowing external circumstances and other people's opinions to define who I believed I was. The work has been learning to build an identity that isn't dependent on the job, the result, the opinion of others, or whether I feel successful that day. Identity is not something that we discover once. It is something we build through the choices we make under pressure or in ordinary moments. In the past, I was more inclined to feel fear and retreat from it. Now, I try to recognize those moments as opportunities to step forward. That is how I continue to develop as a person and a coach and as a leader. I'm going to leave you with a question. What moments in your life felt like setbacks but were actually shaping who you were becoming?